Once upon a time, there lived a tall and handsome man who abandoned his woman on the altar as he went on to marry another woman who his family knew nothing about. His name was Larry, and his story is one that left an entire community in shock. Larry was the kind of man that every mother prayed for: successful, well spoken, and God fearing. He was a thriving businessman in Lekki who owned a chain of logistics companies that kept his name on everyone's lips. His mother, Mama Yabo, worshipped the ground that he walked on. She picked a sweet, soft-spoken church girl named Omolara for him to marry, and Larry never objected to marrying her. He was the sweetest when it came to Omolara, picking her up from church every Sunday and even introducing her to his friends as his wife to be. The wedding preparations began in earnest after their proposal, and Mama Yabo could not hold back her excitement. She printed over 1,000 cards and invited people of timber and caliber who she knew from her time in politics. Mama Yabo was once a minister in the country. Her influence stretched across states, and her name still opened doors in high places. The wedding of her only son Larry was not just a ceremony, it was a public statement. Dignitaries were flying in from Abuja, Ghana, and even the UK. The event was going to make headlines, yet Larry decided to marry another woman on his own wedding day. He stood in the marriage registry, smiling from ear to ear as he tied the knot with the woman who no one knew ever existed. His mother and the other guests pacified Omolara, who was so inconsolable. Everyone thought that something bad had happened to Larry, who appeared hours later to reveal to everyone that he was now married. His words fell to the ground like thunder. "I'm married," he announced, standing tall and remorseless as his mother fainted to the ground. It took two women and a bottle of water to bring her back to life. When her eyes opened and she saw her son standing proudly with another woman, she wailed like a mother at a funeral. "You married who, Larry? You disgraced me. You destroyed everything I built. I invited governors and ministers. What will I tell them now?" But Larry remained unmoved. "I did what I needed to do, Mama. I followed my heart," he said. "Heart care? You don't have heart. You left Omolara like a widowed chicken on the altar and brought this newspaper face to ruin me." Everyone turned to stare at Abake as they held their laughter in. Abake was too quiet. Her eyes, dark, steady, knowing, gave nothing away. But her face betrayed all. Everything was written across her face like headlines on the front page of the Punch. And from that day on, Mama Yabo never called her by her name. She simply called her newspaper face, and Abike did not react. She moved into Larry's penthouse like a queen returning to her throne. She redecorated the place in a week, fired his cook, hired her own driver, changed the staff uniforms, installed cameras, gave instructions that even Larry did not know about. Mama Yabo tried to visit their home uninvited, but Abike met her at the gate. "You can't enter," she said to Mama Yabo, who stood there stunned to realize that her son's wife was now prohibiting her from entering her own son's house. "Excuse me?" Mama Yabo blinked in disbelief as she tried to force her way in, but Abike shut the door to her face, leaving her speechless. Mama Yabo could not believe her eyes. She stormed into her car, angry, and she called her son Larry to inform him of all that just transpired. But Larry told her to go home, that he would visit her later that evening when he returned. Mama Yabo sat in her car, her hands trembling with fury. The phone call had ended, but the insults lingered in her ears like a bitter taste. "Go home, Mama." That was all her beloved son had to say. No anger, no apology, no support. It was as if she had become a stranger overnight, replaced by a woman who she didn't even know where she came from. Mama Yabo clenched her fist as she ordered her driver to take her straight to her prophetess, who informed her that her son had been bewitched by a water spirit. "She is not human," she said, revealing that they had to go on a 100-day fasting and prayer immediately, or else Mama Yabo would lose her son completely to the water spirit. Mama Yabo in that moment now understood why no one knew who Abike was or where she had come from. The private investigators she hired could not find anything on her. No family, no trace, Nothing that could help them decode who she truly was. Mama Yabo could not understand what her son had gotten himself into. She returned home and waited for her son Larry to visit. Hours later, Larry showed up at his mother's mansion alone, exhausted from the day's work. Before he could even sit down, Mama Yabo began to yell out at him angrily. So this is it. After everything I've done for you, I raised you alone, sent you to London, built your first office. Now, I am no longer welcome in your house? Mama, it's not like that. Then how is it? She snapped. That thing, that newspaper face, stood at your door like Queen of Sheba and told me that I could not enter my own son's house. Who gave her the right to even stand before me? She asked her son Larry, who smiled and told her not to call his wife that name again. Her name is Abake, and she is my wife, the woman I chose to marry, Larry said to his mother, who informed him that his wife was a witch. Who is she, Larry? And why did you decide to marry her without my consent? She asked Larry, who told her that she had nothing to worry about. I have nothing to worry, you say? After that witch has bewitched you, that newspaper faced woman bewitched you and locked you in a bottle, not knowing the son of who you are. I will teach her that nobody born under the sun can come close to my family, she said to Larry, who stood there confused as he watched his mother walk away in anger. Larry was so exhausted. He arrived home a few hours later to meet his wife Abake, who had prepared his favorite meal. As they sat there conversing about how their day went, the gate man rushed to inform them that Mama Yabo was at the gate. What does she want again? Larry grumbled as he told the gateman to let her in, but the gateman informed him that she did not want to come in. Then, what's she doing here? Larry asked shockingly as he stood up from his chair and walked to his gate. To his amazement, Larry caught sight of his mother sprinkling holy water at his gate. She was in deep prayers, casting and binding his wife Abake, who stood there stunned to see the drama unfolding. Mama Yabo did not hold back. She called out Abake's name repeatedly as she even sprinkled some water on her, binding her and commanding her to leave her son alone. Larry could not stand the humiliation. He told his gateman to lock the gate as he went into the house with his wife, who stood there in disbelief, the drops of holy water clinging to her skin like tiny insults. I'm sorry, Abake, he said, pacing. I'll talk to her again. I swear this has gone too far. But Abake did not speak. She simply walked to the sink, washed her hands quietly and returned to her seat. Her eyes, one sharp with confidence, were now void of emotion, unreadable, blank like a page waiting for a painful story to be written. Omolara, the woman he was supposed to marry, fell into deep depression. She paid Mama Yabo a visit, crying and lamenting about how Larry had destroyed her life. Mama Yabo could not bear to see her cry. She assured Omolara that her son Larry would still marry her. That useless woman he claims to have married will soon vacate his house, giving way for you to take your rightful position. She assured Omolara, who left the house hours later, excited that Larry would one day come back to marry her. Whilst Omolara basked in the euphoria of finally marrying Larry, Larry was in his office angry. He hadn't slept properly in weeks, not because of work, not because of Abake, but because his mother had turned his house into a prayer house. Every day for the past 36 days, at exactly midnight, Mama Yabo appeared at the gate, holding a bottle of holy water as she began to pray. Every marine spirit at work in this house, catch fire, she would scream, her voice echoing through the entire house. Larry's neighbors began peeking through their windows, wondering why his mother was making noise in the neighborhood. Abake was so livid. She would wake up groggy, eye bags the size of carry-on luggage under her eyes, and stare at Larry like she was plotting a quiet murder. Your mother has turned me into a prayer point, she whispered one morning. I heard her praying in tongues about me last night, begging God to separate me from you, she said to Larry, who promised to do something about it. Days later, Omolara decided to pay Abake a visit. She wore the engagement ring that Larry had given to her, months before he abandoned her at the altar. The moment Abake opened the door, she could not believe who she was seeing. Can I help you? She said to Omolara, who placed her hand on her chest to show the engagement ring on her finger. Pardon my manners. I'm Omolara, Larry's fiancée, she said to Abake, who asked what she was doing in their house. You must have a death wish, Omolara said to Abike, who stood there calm as she watched her boil in anger. You took what's mine with your witchcraft, and I'm here to tell you that your plans have failed. Soon, I'll take what rightfully belongs to me, she threatened Abike, who stood there smiling as she watched Omolara vent. You newspaper face, what's so funny? She asked Abike, who landed her a very hot slap. Omolara raised her hand to retaliate when Abike beat her up like a small child. Omolara could not believe her eyes. She stood there in pain as Larry rushed down the stairs to meet her at his door. Omolara, what are you doing here? Larry asked as he warned her never to come to his house again. Get out, he said angrily to Omolara, who paused as she watched Larry bang the door on her face. Omolara stood there in complete shock, clutching her burning cheeks like a wounded lioness. She staggered back slowly, heels wobbling, makeup smudged, her once flawless wig now tilted slightly. The security guard tried not to laugh. Even the dog barked in a way that sounded like mockery. Omolara glanced back at the house, her eyes wide with disbelief. Is it me, Omolara Adesua, that this useless girl slapped? She asked herself as she walked out of the house. Inside the house, however, Larry stood in the middle of the living room heaving in anger. He turned to Abike, who stood there calm like one who could not hurt a fly. Did you really have to slap her? Larry asked his wife Abike, who smiled and looked up at him. Larry, she called me newspaper face, and I could not help but give her a new headline. Larry did not know when he burst out in laughter. It was the first time in weeks that he truly laughed, the kind that bubbled from his belly, uncontrollable and loud, as if Abike had finally pressed the pressure valve inside of him. He clutched his stomach, still chuckling, as he fell back onto the couch, eyes watery from relief and laughter. Abike did not laugh. She simply returned to the dining table, crossed her legs like a queen in control of her empire, and took a sip from her wine glass. Next time, she said calmly, tell your ex-fiancé that this newspaper now prints obituaries too. Larry let out another laughter, shaking his head. God, you're insane, Abike, he said as Abike sat there and sipped her wine. Meanwhile, at Mama Yabo's house, Omolara sat in her living room crying as she told Mama Yabo all that had happened. I went there, Mama. I went to fight for what belongs to me. And that witch, that newspaper face, slapped me and beat me like a maid. Mama Yabo could not believe her ears. She slapped you? She asked as she paced the room, thinking of what to do with Abike, the woman who not only snuck into her son's life, but also stopped her from ever visiting his home. Mama Yabo immediately called her prophetess, who informed her that they had to meet immediately for special prayers. Mama Yabo was about to head out when she heard her doorbell ring. She opened the door and found a delivery man standing there. From who? Mama Yabo asked, and the man shrugged and handed her the package. On it was a writing that stated, from the one who knows the truth. Mama Yabo collected the package and walked into her house slowly. She opened up the package and saw a flash drive. Mama Yabo could not understand what was happening. She had a laptop but did not know how to use it. So she pleaded with Omolara to help her plug in the flash drive. Omolara slid the flash drive into the port and saw a file that appeared on the screen. Play me if you dare to know why. Mama Yabo took a seat as she told Omolara to wait for her in the living room. She clicked on the video and began to watch. It was a video of a man and a woman walking into a hotel. Mama Yabo could not make out their faces, so she decided to keep watching, trying to understand what the video was all about. She saw them hugging as they made their way to the hotel room. Mama Yabo could not help but think, is this not Abake? She thought to herself as she curiously watched the video, trying to see the face of the woman who was now walking hand in hand with the strange man. Minutes later, the video showed the faces of the people and Mama Yabo froze in complete shock. It was Omolara and the son of her prophetess in a hotel room kissing. Omolara was in bed with him as they laughed, joked and referred to her son Larry as a fool. Mama Yabo watched Omolara say things about her son that made her sick to her stomach. Once I marry Larry, I'll poison him and move all his assets to my name. Then I'll act as a poor widow for 1 year and mourn the idiot, not to raise any suspicion with his foolish mother. That woman gets on my last nerve. It's obvious she doesn't love her son, forcing him to marry a woman like me, a whole me, she said as the prophetess' son laughed and replied her saying that his mother, the prophetess, promised to ensure that the wedding happened no matter what. You know Mama Yabo is so foolish. She listens to whatever the prophetess tells her. So, she plans to give her the oil to make Larry fall deeply in love with you, the prophetess' son added, as they both laughed and made fun of Mama Yabo as well as her son Larry. Mama Yabo could not believe her ears. Omolara, the girl who she almost forced on her son, had not only been sleeping with the prophetess' son, but had also plotted to murder her only child Larry, the very child she carried for 9 months, labored to raise alone, and built a life around. Her legs buckled as she staggered back, feeling the room spin around her. For the first time in over 30 years, Mama Yabo wept like a child. Tears rolled down her cheeks, hot, bitter tears, as she remembered all that she put her son through because of Omolara. She remembered standing at the gate of her son's house, screaming prayers that now mocked her ignorance. She had almost delivered her son to death with her own hands. She closed the laptop, her hands trembling as she wiped her tears. Mama Yabo walked up to the living room and met Omolara, who was oblivious of what had just been revealed. She looked up with her usual entitled smile, dabbing her fake tears with a silk handkerchief. Mama, what did the video say? Was it proof against that witch? I'm sure it's something we can use to get her out of Larry's house. Before she could finish speaking, Mama Yabo landed her a very hot slap, the same place that Abake had slapped her earlier. Omolara's head spun sideways, her cheek burning as her eyes opened wide in shock. Mama, what did I do? She asked Mama Yabo, who began to scream out angrily. You Jezebel! You lying poisonous God-forsaken snake! You sat in my house, crying like a widow, when all along you were the one holding the knife to kill my son. Omolara blinked, confused. Mama, I don't understand what you're talking about. Oh, don't even try it. Mama Yabo thundered. You and that devilish son of the prophetess planned to kill Larry and inherit his wealth. You mocked me in that hotel room, called me foolish. Me, Mama Yabo. You thought you could deceive me forever? The flash drive showed everything. Omolara stood up, panicking. Mama, wait, let me explain. Explain what? That you planned to poison my son? That you called me a fool? That you slept with another man while parading yourself as a virgin? You ungrateful rat. Mama, please, please, it was a mistake. I love your son. I have changed. Get out of my house now. Mama Yabo yelled out at the top of her voice as Omolara froze. I said get out. You're lucky I didn't drag you to the police. I don't want to ever see you near my son again. If I see you near my gate, if I ever hear your name again, I swear by the grave of my ancestors, I will kill you with my bare hands. Omolara turned and ran, stumbling over her own legs as she fled from the mansion. Mama Yabo watched her disappear through the gate as she collapsed on her knees, crying. Not for Omolara, not for the shame. She wept for her son Larry, the one she had wronged, the one she now had to face and beg. That evening, Mama Yabo showed up at Larry's house, barefoot with no driver or security in sight. Abake opened the door and froze when she saw her. Mama Yabo fell to her knees. Please, forgive me, she cried. Forgive me for all the things I did to you, for all the names I called you, for all the shame I brought to your doorstep, she said to Abake, who stood there stunned as Larry walked in on his mother kneeling and begging for forgiveness. Mama, what happened? Larry asked his mother, who handed the flash drive to him as her hands trembled. Everything is all in here, she said. Omolara, the prophetess, the plan to kill you, my shame, my foolishness. Larry took the flash drive from her and smiled. I sent it, Mama, he said, revealing that he knew all along. His mother looked at him stunned. Was that why you did not want to marry her? She asked Larry, who told her to sit as they began to tell her the whole story. What had happened was that Larry met Abake so many years ago. She was his first love, and Larry was so shocked to see her again after so many years. Abake lost her entire family in a robbery. The armed men shot her entire family dead in their home on that fateful night. She thought it was a normal robbery, not knowing that someone was out to wipe out her entire family. One night, after they had killed her entire family, they returned and set her family house on fire, knowing that she was inside. However, Abake snuck out from one of the windows and escaped into the night. She traveled to a different city and changed her name to Abake, erasing everything about her past. For years, she lived in hiding, working small jobs, learning to survive as she made up her mind to find out who exactly was behind the death of her entire family. It was during that journey that she stumbled upon something horrifying, a document that her father kept in his secret storage in town. Abike remembered her father telling her about a storage box in town where he kept valuable documents. So she decided to trace the box one evening and saw some documents that raised her suspicion. Her father was a federal auditor who had uncovered large scale fraud tied to the prophetess and her son. Before he could blow the whistle, his entire family was eliminated, except Abike, who managed to escape. She changed her name and waited for years to make them believe that she died in the fire. Little did they know that Abike was the daughter of the auditor who they eliminated with his family. On one of the days when Abike was trailing the prophetess' son, she saw him with a woman who she did not think much of at first until she overheard them talking about their next target, Lanre Ajayi. The name rang a bell, and Abike decided to trail the woman, who led her straight to Lanre's house. This was months before their wedding, and Abike did everything possible to save Lanre's life. She told him of their plans and warned him to be careful of the woman that he planned to marry, as well as the prophetess and her son. And Lanre, not wanting to believe what she was saying, decided to investigate for himself and realized that Abike was telling the truth. He apologized for not believing her at first, and the more they spent time together, the more Lanre began to develop genuine feelings for Abike, whose real name was Adeife Folarin. Lanre did nothing to make Omolara suspect that he knew what she was up to. He led her on and abandoned her at the altar, believing that it was the best revenge for a woman who planned to kill him. Mama Yabo sat in stunned silence, unable to speak as her son finally unveiled the entire truth to her. Abike, the same woman who she mocked and humiliated, had been the one protecting her son all along. Mama Yabo in that moment felt so stupid for calling her newspaper face. She now understood why Abike changed the staff and workers immediately she moved into Lanre's house. No one knew that she was protecting Larry from potential harm. Mama Yabo apologized to her again, promising to make the prophetess, her son and Omolara pay for all the evil that they had ever done. She called the police, who arrested them all before they escaped town. She finally embraced Abike as her son's wife and showered her with so much love and attention. The lesson to be learned from this story is that sometimes the person we mock, reject, or misunderstand may be the very one God has sent to save us. Pride, assumptions, and spiritual manipulation can blind even the wisest of hearts. Mama Yabo judged Abike by her face, calling her newspaper face without ever reading the truth written boldly across it. In the end, it was that same newspaper that exposed a deadly conspiracy and saved her only son from destruction. So, before you dismiss someone based on appearance or pride, take a closer look, because the face you mock today may be the headline that saves your life tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed the story.